I think this is an intergenerational movement. When we were growing up, our parents, we're not into psychedelics, and now you see multiple generations that are sharing. A lot of people, I have a motto that many people know, nature provides, I don't. That's been my mantra for 30 years. I'm happy to announce I just received a Drug Enforcement Administration license for psilocybin. I passed my background check. Woohoo! But people oftentimes ask me, well, where I can get psilocybin? I go, I can't possibly tell you, but you have grandkids? How old are they? 16 to 25, they probably know where to find some. But a funny story about intergenerational and with children, my partner and I live on a remote island in Desolation Sound, British Columbia. That's where I spend 95% of my time. It's very strange. It's a beautiful place, but then we get thrust into conferences. Otherwise, we live in extraordinary isolation. And I have a boat, and I was over at a place that is a water access only tiny little village, and I was gassing up my boat at the dock, and I was, walking down the dock, and there was this like 6, 7-year-old girl. She wasn't older than 8 for sure, but 6 to 8 years old, and she's like, I'm walking down the dock, and she's there with her family. They had come in on a little sailboat. And she just stopped in the middle of the dock and looked at me, and she goes, are you Paul Stamets? And I was going, wow, really? I'm in bumfuck nowhere, And I go, yes, and yes. And she goes, oh, I was like that. So she ran back to her parents saying, oh, but this is Paul Stamets. And so it was really nice meeting her, and she was really enthused. And so I said, they go, we saw your movie, Fantastic Fungi. And I looked at her, and she was really excited. And I go, what was your favorite part of the movie? And she goes, I like the part when the monkeys ate the mushrooms. A little twinkle with the parents' eyes going, okay, this is the next generation. But I do think it's multi-generational, and I say this with some chagrin and sadness. Before my father died, he asked to trip on psilocybin mushrooms with me. And Alexander Smith, who, like Daniel Stuntz, was one of my great mentors, he was the father of American mycology, published many new species of psilocybin mushrooms, many monographs, University of Michigan. And he also asked me to trip with him on psilocybin mushrooms. I mean, these are two very important men and, literally father figures in my life. And with both of them, I asked the same question. And I said, okay, we could do this. This can profoundly change you. Helen, Alexander Smith's wife, she was also a renowned mycologist. I asked her, and I asked my father's wife, will you also, take these psilocybin mushrooms with us? And both of them said no. They wouldn't do it. And I said, well, I respectfully decline. I cannot give you psilocybin mushrooms, go on a journey with you, and at the end of your life, they're in their 70s, you'll have such a profound experience that I didn't want to drive a wedge in your relationship. And this is where I think therapists and psychiatrists are so important to create safe guardrails, because these are powerful medicines. But what happens afterwards? You do this big, extraordinary journey, and then I disappear, right? And they're left holding the pieces. I didn't live with my father. I just on vacation. I'd go away in 2 days. Alexander Smith, I'd go away the next day. And then he would have to be trying to tell Helen or their partners something that they couldn't fathom. And this is, I think, a really serious, question that we all face. These are such powerful medicines. What happens afterwards? Are you there for them? Are you skilled enough to help them process? And I think this is really, really important. It's not the journey itself, it's the path of the journey, and subsequently that you need to come to terms and be able to talk this out. So in the audience here, we have a giant in the Canadian psychedelic movement, and it's Dr. Pam Crisco. And she is part of the Canadian Psychedelic Association and a group called Roots to Thrive. They're doing group therapy, end-of-life despair, distress, anxiety, mostly stage 4 diagnosed patients with Canadian government approval with high doses of psilocybin. Now this, I think, is a model, and it's being replicated, so I want to give her a lot of credit. She's in the front row here, and many of you. But what they have pioneered, which is really good, and with indigenous input, et cetera, is that because this group of 8 people, and they have 8, support people, physicians, other people who are skilled in this, indigenous people as well, elders, but because they have a common, malady or they have a death, sentence. The fact they all share this sort of like, oh my gosh, we're doomed to die very soon, because they could come together and prepare over several weeks, and then they shared this journey together, they became a community of people who could talk to each other when the other people weren't available, to build bridges and bonds, and to be able to have a common destiny that you shared together in this journey, rather than being alone, which is what my father and Alexander Smith would have faced. What a contrast. And so I think this idea of people coming together, not like going to Costa Rica or Jamaica and Cusco, Peru or something like this, and you walk in and you pay your fee and you sit down with strangers. I think that's a formula for disaster. Because one person have a bad trip will traumatize everybody in the group, and they'll go, WTF, we didn't sign up for this. They're making my trip really challenging. So I think having this shared common purpose, I think that model has extraordinarily powerful potential. So Dr. Prem Crisco, thank you very much for your leadership. You're really doing something quite amazing. And they're publishing on this as well.